Today, we're gonna have fun. Maybe. I picked up two 10-footers of this white trim because it's a little price-alicious. I need to cover this joint right here, and this is just all kinds of ugly, and this has got a heavy texture on it, and I cannot match that heavy texture, and so I want the trim wider to get me to the texture so it doesn't look horrible. And so anyways, I bought two 10-foot pieces. I've got 3 1/4, so that leaves me about 1/4 inch above here, which would be just fine. It's kind of what we want for a back set. 3/16, 1/4 inch would be fine. Sometimes with a wider trim, you go a little bit wider reveal. With a smaller trim, you go a little bit narrower reveal. Typically 3/16, like I said the other day, 3/16 is pretty standard back from this edge. I might go a little bit wider than 3/16 over here because I want to try to cover this. My trim is 3 1/4, and that just gets me to that edge. So I'm going to go a little bit extra. So I'd rather be past the edge than short of the edge. So here I want to be 3 1/4, 3 1/4. I want to measure this from point to point, which is 29 1/8. Looking right here because it's going to get covered anyways. 29 1/8. And 3 1/4, 3 1/4 is 6 1/2, 6 1/2. And then I want to cheat it over here a little bit, bring it in a little on the bottom. So here we go, we're going to add this up, 1/8, so that's a whole, so 36 inches, 36 and 0/8. 36 inches is what I need to make this top piece. 36 is going to be my long point to my long point. And so I'll cut that first. I knew I was gonna have a little joint here. I didn't want to buy an extra 10-foot piece. We're in a budget, and this is wide trim. It's a little bit more expensive than the other trim. I got this close enough to this where I'm gonna clean this up a little bit with the drywall sanding sponge, and I'll run a bead of caulk all along here, and this is real close to this edge, and that bead of caulk will cover that real nice. This is gonna look fantastic. There's a couple nails here I need to set a little deeper, and you know, I have this little joint here, but once that's painted, you're never even gonna know it's there. And the other thing that I have, and I don't know if you can see this or not, we have this little spot right here. And this trim is very old. It's very old trim that they don't make anymore. At least not in the places where I shop. I don't know, I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do here. I need something in there, I can't leave that, it just looks like garbage. Maybe I'll take a piece of a 1x material and just take it on a sander, you know, cut it to this height, take a sander and round it off and try to mimic that. I'll have to figure something out. Yes?
Hi. Would putting a piece of 1x and then putting a piece of 1/4 round on top of it work? Or is that not the same dimension as a 1/4 round?
A little piece like that, a 1/4 round, would probably split.
Ooh, babe.
So,
nice. I love how you did the bigger reveal so that the trim goes all the way as far as we needed it to. That was really smart.
I needed to reach, that's the reason why this trim is so wide, is I needed to reach this edge.
Yeah, I thought that once we got it and it was too narrow that we were sunk, but
No.
we weren't.
No, you can shift it over a little bit.
Up there is a little grate thingy that has been off forever and it's driving me bananas. I think we need to get that installed today.
You might say it's grating on her. That's not too bad.
That looks really nice, babe.
Yeah.
Look at you learning new skills.
I know, right? Expanding my horizon here.
The walls in this small bedroom are pretty heavily textured. You see that texture on the existing walls? So where Eric put the trim up, he is manually creating that texture. If
Drywall
you
mud.
watch him here with the drywall mud. You want to explain what you're doing?
I'm trying to match this texture as close as I can. I think I might be a little, the texture might be a little deeper than this, but I think once it dries, I might be able to knock down some of the high points. I'm sure I'm probably not going to be able to match this exactly, but if I don't do something with it, it's going to go from a heavy texture to flat. And that's just, it's going to look ugly. And so this is just going to look a little less ugly. Hopefully a lot less ugly.
Look up there above the trim where somebody else did a patch and they just pulled the mud forward. They didn't put any kind of a spackling on it.
And that looks ugly.
And that looks really,
You got
see,
that
that
over
looks
here.
pretty
You
obvious.
see, show them this right here. Same thing on that ceiling where they put those
Yeah,
patches.
right here on the ceiling. You see this? Where they patched something? Oh, I bet you that's where, yeah, that's for sure where they put in the blown in insulation. Years ago, they came through and cut, you'll see all around the exterior of this house, those 2-inch diameter circles where they drilled holes and then put in blown in insulation.
So when this house was built in, I believe 1890, insulation wasn't a product readily available. I've worked on some other old homes that were built in the turn of the century, and sometimes they had like paper, like shredded newspapers and other things, put in the wall cavity. A lot of them were just totally empty. I'm glad this was done. This house is definitely more art, you know, has more R value and is more insulated. This right here, the top portion, it came out quite a bit past the trim, and that flat spot would have looked ugly. This is going to look better. It's not going to match perfectly, but it'll be pretty close.
I think it's going to look really nice.
And then this area here, I'm going to take, once this is dry, I'm going to take and caulk this down the rest of the way. The caulk will cover that. That was the whole idea of that wide trim, was to bring us over to this point so we didn't have so much of the ugly showing. But, you know, there was no way, unless we're going to go a 6-inch trim, that we could cover all that. It's a good solution.
I agree. My goal before we leave today is to get that grate installed. While Eric has the leftover drywall mud from doing the texture in the small bedroom, I want to show you what he's doing right now, and I'll tell you about it as we watch him. We were talking about those 2.5-inch holes where they drilled out the lath and plaster and installed insulation at some point in the life of this house through all the exterior walls. Now, we weren't gonna fix these, but since he's got the leftover drywall mud, we figured, why not? In my personal opinion, Eric is basically an artisan with drywall mud and a knife. Over in the living room, I'll show you a spot where there was a hole about the size of like a paper plate that you would have at a summertime picnic. But he did such a fantastic job of filling it in, even in spite of the groove. See how this paneling has grooves in it? Yes, this is your classic 1970s wood paneling. We've painted over it. We are those people.
We're going to rip it off eventually.
Eventually, yes. The ugly paneling is going away.
We don't have time to do everything the first shot.
I will say that with a couple good coats of paint on it, the paneling isn't as bad as it was when it was wood grain. So let's go take a look while he finishes doing this. Let's go take a look at the spot in the living room where he handled that hole. There's a little piece of trim several inches from the ceiling. That is because when they installed this paneling, one sheet couldn't go all the way from the ground up because these walls, babe, are these 9-foot walls?
I think they're like 8'8".
One sheet of paneling couldn't reach from the bottom to the top, so they ran it.
It comes in 8-foot lengths.
Right, it comes in 8-foot lengths. So they ran it to where it stopped, and then just put another piece on top of it, and then put this silly trim right across the joint. Now, in this little section right here, if you look very closely at this ridge, you'll notice that that ridge doesn't quite match the other ridges. It's just a touch wider. That's because that is not paneling. That's the spot where there was a big hole sitting there. And my honey filled it with drywall mud. Honey, did you put one coat or several coats of drywall mud?
2 coats.
2 coats of drywall mud to fill it out. Drywall mud often, well, it always shrinks a bit. So when you're doing a large application, you'll need to do several coats. So we put 2 coats of drywall mud, one, let it dry, came back, did another one, let that dry, sanded it nice and smooth, sanded the grooves into it, and it looks fantastic. So that is why, if I ever seem like I think my honey is an amazing carpenter, and I think he can do all kinds of things, and why I say that he is a drywall mud artisan, that is why. This drywall mud is one of those things where you want to fix everything, and we've been looking at these holes and wanting them to be gone, but we always said, well, if we have time for it, we'll do it. Let's just keep moving forward. If there's time and place for it, we'll do it. He had just finished the patch in the other room, had some leftover drywall mud, had the time to do it, so we did it. Would we have mixed up a batch of drywall mud specifically for it? I don't know. It's nice when you have a little extra time, you have a little extra drywall mud on hand, and can make those fixes that you really want to. Because if we didn't, I know my honey especially, every time he came in this house for whatever reason, those little 2-inch holes would drive him bananas. And now they don't have to.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Alright.
Not gonna be an exact match, but again, it's gonna look a lot better than being flat. I said that I was going to need to do something in here to fill this last bit, and they don't make this trim anymore, so I had to find something that would work. So I had some trim, some base trim that was left that I used in the bedroom, and it's only about yay high. It's not as wide as this. I had a little piece of drywall hanging around, just a little chunk. So I cut a little strip of drywall about this high, and I put it back against it to build it out a 1/2 inch. I got pretty lucky with the thickness of this trim added to the drywall. It came about to the same thickness. So essentially what I did was I put a piece of 1/2 inch drywall, a little strip behind this, and then I cut a piece of trim about like this. This is the first one. I put a nail in it and it's split. So I cut another one, and I put some caulk behind it, and I stuck it to the drywall, and I cut it nice and tight, so it fits in there tight, and kind of holds it till the caulk dries. And it came out flush, like almost perfect. There was a little bit of gap because the top is only this wide, and obviously this top is much wider than that. And so I just came to where it planed out. And then I cut another piece. You can't see it. I can't hardly even see it, but I can feel there's a ridge right here where I cut another piece, and then I cut it short, and I placed it in the bottom. And again, I caulked the back of it and stuck it against the drywall. And that's a pretty close fit. I don't know. I guess some people would think it's bootleg. It's going to look nice. It's going to look like all the other trim. And in front of this bottom, I'm putting some base shoe that's going to cover up this high anyways. And once we put some paint on this, you're not even going to be able to tell that this is not all one piece. The only reason you're going to know is because I'm telling you. This came a little short, so I put some caulk in there, and and then I spread the caulk out, and I smoothed it out and followed this profile. And it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Once this base shoe is on here and this is painted, it's all going to look like one piece. It is real wood, except for the little bit on top. That's how I solved that problem.
My honey got some nice new t-shirts today.
I'm gonna wear it out in public like this. I'm gonna leave mine there.
Are you sometimes a little stubborn?
No. Let's go. This could probably be sanded and painted,
Okay.
I think. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
I think it would blend all right. So do I have a sponge? Sanding sponge. Here it is. If we've got some gray, I mean, I've got some gray. If we have some gray paint,
Who's got some gray?
I've got some gray. This is a lot easier to use out of 1 gallon bucket than a 5 gallon bucket. Buy a good brush. I resisted buying a good brush for a lot of years, and I found a good sale and I bought a Purdy brush, and I paid 4 times more than I typically paid for a brush, and it hurt a little bit. But after I used it the first time, I realized why it's worth it. It really does make a difference when you're using a good brush. We've got this grate that has been grating on my wife for some time. These here are my safety glasses. I'm gonna leave these on site. We went home this afternoon and I was able to retrieve these and bring them back. After that, we just did painting.
They're like an
So,
umbrella.
Yeah.
You keep them with you so that you don't need them.